Hello and welcome, and in today's video I'm going to be sharing with you the top 5 best Ark boss creatures. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. So coming in at the number 10 spot, I've decided to put the Mantis, as I find this creature is highly effective in boss scenarios. It is quite a fast, rapid creature, and also with that it can wield weapons too. It is a really valuable one for defeating the Manticore on Scorched Earth. That's definitely where I would advise it the most out of all of these, and although the tame method can be a little bit obnoxious in cases, I find it is not too bad, and there are some creatures on this list which do have much harder tame methods than this creature. Again, you're going to want to choose those weapons wisely that you use. Swords and pikes are going to be your best bet. I would arguably go for pikes because the durability is higher. Maybe the damage isn't higher, but you can always get some ascendant ones on there. Do take into mind that the durability of the weapons does drop a lot faster when the Mantis is wielding them compared to if you were wielding them, so don't judge it based on that. Either way, that's all the precautions for this creature to use it in a given boss scenario. Apart from also, actually, their health isn't the greatest, especially if you get some lower level ones, so be careful for that. But as long as the boss fight isn't too long, you will have a good time using Mantises in that scenario. Next up, I have chosen the Carodonttosaurus for this list, as it does pay quite a good contribution to defeating any of the extinction bosses, that being any of the titans and just the alpha king titan as well, the beta king titan, the gamma king titan, all of the bosses on extinction are going to be where you're going to use this creature, and it is your best bet really. Yes, you could still use gigas, and gigas will still be effective, but they are a lot less reliable than this creature, and let me tell you the main reason why. You probably know by now that the Giga has a blood rage, not a blood rage, sorry, a rage ability. The blood rage belongs to this creature, and essentially what that means is if it takes a certain amount of damage in a certain period of time, because it is based on the timer as well, then it will take you off of its saddle and just go into full rage mode and just try and demolish everything around it. And if you're using it in a given boss scenario, it's going to be dealing quite a lot of damage quite quickly, especially considering, you know, they are the titans we're talking about. They tend to damage quite quickly, and obviously with a lot of heavy damage. They don't tend to just give small amounts of damage out over time. It tends to be quite rapid and very forceful, and sometimes the gigas can get out of control, and it's really not going to be your best bet. Also, the more you fight with these things, the more damage they'll do until their blood rage is full. They really are just more reliable than the giga for that reason, and that's why they're here. Now, the Megalosaurus is one of those where I find it is quite underrated, and you might actually consider the Rock Drake to be quite a good boss tame for its cheesing of the Rockwell boss fight, so brief honourable mention there, but it is not on any other spot in the list. Anyway, talking about the Megalosaurus, a bit off topic to be honest. The Megalosaurus is one of those creatures where I find it is forgotten in the given boss fighting community, and I find it is a very useful one, and maybe it would be a bit of a pain to take it to that given boss arena, because it only really works well at night time. I'm not sure if that works on the island or in other maps like that where you're in a boss fight. Does it have a day and night? Are these things going to sleep through it? Either way, on Operation they are absolute kings of the boss fighting area, and obviously they excel in that for many reasons. They have the bleed ability, obviously. On top of that too, they are very fast, nimble, agile creatures, and this hugely attributes them to being great boss creatures. Yes, a heavy damage dealing creature is nice to have, but one which is also very mobile will give you a much higher chance of given survival in these boss fighting scenarios, and this really does. On top of that, on Operation you can use it for so many other things as well, and on other maps too. They are great versatile travelers, and they generally just pack a punch all the time you're using them. So if you tend to travel a lot in the night time, and if you feel like maybe you want to give these creatures a go for some boss fights, then sure, try it, and I think you won't be disappointed. In at number 7 we have got the Megeum, and this creature is here because if you've ever fought the Broodmother you will know how great these creatures are if you've used them in that boss fight, and this is just for one main reason. If they kill an insect, which in this case are the minions, or they're actually Araneos that the broodmother spawns, but they're the minions of which the broodmother spawns, it's going to kill those, and then it's going to get this insect buff, which essentially I think it's called like a rage buff again, something to do with that, and it's going to deal a lot more damage to the broodmother and to all the other creatures around it as well. On top of that, as well, is actually these things are going to take less damage too, which is even greater in a given boss scenario. And if you have a ute on top of it as well, I actually haven't included this in the list because this is just the fighters for boss battles, although I really should give it an honorable mention, as the ute is one of those creatures where it gets a gold star for being a great boss creature. But this is the top 10 boss fighters list. I probably didn't make that too obvious apart from in the title, where I think in the intro I actually just said boss teams, but you know, you can read, I'm relying on you for that. Either way, yeah, very good for the broodmother boss fight, and the Ute deserves a little honorable mention because it still can fight, and you know, you'll want one in a boss fight. Continuing on, we have got the Thea, and the reason why this creature is here is not just because its saddle is unlocked at level 69.
Nice.
It is because this is really a great boss creature for dealing with the dragon on the island, and obviously ASA is still kind of a new thing and a lot more people are playing on the island. Admittedly, Scorched Earth has moved a lot of players onto that, as honestly that is the best thing in my opinion ASA has to offer right now. But the Thea is that go-to for the dragon boss fight, and that is because it has an ability, the dragon, not the Thea, where the dragon is going to shoot out loads of fire and it's going to deal tons of damage to carnivores. Actually, it's particularly offensive to those creatures, whereas the Thea does not fall into that category as it is not a carnivore, and it still packs a lot of punch in the damage department, has great health, great stamina, great mobility, and its weight isn't too bad as well. That doesn't really matter an awful lot in a boss fight as long as it still is enough to maybe carry a bit of food in it, and just, you know, so you can ride it possibly. Also, that actually does come to one thing. For food, you can't just chuck meat in this thing's inventory, although it can gather it, it does not eat it. And sweet vegetable cake is your best bet to healing these things quickly, but that is quite expensive, so that's the only real downside for using Theas in a boss fighting scenario. In number 5, we have got the Spinosaurus, and come on, when it comes to boss fights, this is another one of those underrated creatures, and I really do wish still that people use these creatures more for boss fights, because Rexes do seem to be all the rage. And although they are on this list later on, because I really do feel as if, you know, they deserve a place on the list as they have done a lot for people in boss fights, this could possibly be seen as a potentially better one. It's just considering the use of a Rex and the versatility that it offers, I'm having to put that creature higher on the list. It's just simply that has a point of higher status. But the Spino has a lot going for it as well. Admittedly, having a lower health stat though, it does boast even more damage than the Rex and a hell of a lot more mobility. On top of that, it is actually a pretty good underwater swimmer as well. Not obviously the best out there, but you could do the Moda with some Spinos if you wanted, and obviously if you're doing that on Gen 1 you'd be getting X Spinos anyway, so there is a boosted variant. They can also, when on land, get on their hind legs and deal even more damage. They can turn 360 on the spot, which a Rex can't do, which makes them invaluable for PvP potential. But you know, still, a boss fight's not PvP, but it can still be applied to any given combat scenario. It's just that is mainly used in PvP, and it's where the Rexes lack in PvP. It's why they don't actually get used all too much, because their ability is frankly quite rubbish, and if the thing that they're attacking isn't exactly in front of them, then there's a tendency that they'll miss, and they tend to be quite easy to kill off that way. But yes, the Spinos at number 5. Let's continue on. This might be an unpopular opinion, considering I'm going to give it away that the Rex is at number 3, but at number 4 I'm putting the Aloe, because I find it is a really great boss creature. Not only is it small and very agile, it also does boast the pack buff on top of it and the bleed ability too. They really are great little fighters, and they're not the hardest to tame. You can even tame it 3 in one go if you build a big enough trap. Simply lure all of them in, and then boom, there you go. Once you've knocked them out and you've fed them, you've got 3 Aloes and a good 5 or so, maybe 10 if you doing some of the alpha boss fights will be enough for all of them on the island I'm talking about here, because I'm mainly generalizing to that map, because they really are very effective fighters. You could probably still do it with 5 as long as their health is high enough. That's the only thing they're really lacking compared to something like a Rex, because they'll probably be dealing more damage and they are far more agile and just generally more convenient, especially actually if you're doing the oversteer, I find, although I don't really typically use them for that boss fight as it is a little bit too long, and I find quite a lot of the allos do tend to die, especially considering even the Rexes tend to die and their health is quite a bit higher than something on the allo. But I guess maybe if you brought enough you could do it. I haven't really done it all too much. I've done it once or twice, but that was on Gamma. I've never done the Alpha Overseer with allos. I've only ever done it with Rexes and then obviously a UT, because you've got to bring the UT in. It's not on this list because I don't really use it all too much as a general boss fighter, but I did give it a mention as it definitely still can fight. I guess I've given it 2 mentions now. But yes, the allo really does deserve to be on this list. If you've never used one before for a boss fight scenario, take yourself a pack of maybe 5 and do one of the Gamma ones or a beta. Actually, they could probably even smash through that with absolute ease. Maybe don't try the alphas until you've got at least 10 of these things, and you're going to have a really great time. You're not going to regret taming one at all. At number 3, like I said, we have got the Rex, and I have to put this thing here. Come on, it boasts a lot of health. It has a lot of damage up its sleeve, and although it's not the most mobile, it really is the foundation of what is a great boss creature, and people use these things all over the place. They really are a go-to. If you never can figure out what creature you're going to use for a boss fight, the Rex is probably the answer that you've been looking for. It really does make sense. It is a big carnivore that is going to just generally pack a lot of punch in the damage department and be quite defensive in the aspect of its health is quite good, and that is where it stands apart from a lot of the other carnivores, because its health is a lot higher, which makes it ideal for boss scenarios. Yes, you're going to want to deal loads of damage quickly, but you're also going to want to have enough health to withstand it, and again, that's where creatures like sometimes the Spino and the Allo tend to fall a little bit behind, and some of the other creatures that I talked about much earlier on the list, which is why they're further back. The Rex is just the foundation of it all, and it deserves to be here. It is the OG. It deserves a respect that, you know, it actually doesn't tend to get quite as much nowadays, just considering how easy to tame people have them all over the place, but they really can do a lot, especially if you get some mutated ones on top of it as well, some health and damage mutations. Don't underestimate these things in a given boss fighting scenario, because they will pack a punch and they're very much worth it. In number 2, we have got the Shadow Mane, and come on, when looking at this creature, you can probably tell why it is such a great boss tame. Yes, maybe it doesn't have quite the level of health as a Rex, but considering its insanely high mobility, its pack buff, its hydration buff, and the fact that it can just deal tons of damage, and you can get loads of these things relatively easily, especially once you've got your first pair, because the tame method is actually quite awkward. So maybe it's not the easiest from the get-go, but once you've got a good high-level male and female, breed those things up and you're going to have yourself an absolute army of Shadow Manes, especially if you get some mutations on top of it as well. They are the second best boss creatures that I can think of for any given boss fight, apart from obviously the extinction bosses. Just use Gigas or Carodonttosaurus for that, because they're in a sort of different league. You can even use these things for the Moda if you want, as they are very nice at swimming underwater and actually just underwater boss fights, of which there are only one of. I've done all of the variants of the Moda, Gamma, Beta and Alpha with this thing, and it did actually work pretty well. If you haven't done that before, again, give that a try. At number 1, we have got the Dionicus, and this always tops my list for the best boss creatures. Some people just say, well, they're really feeble in the health department, you can just kill them off really quickly. Obviously, don't use these things for the extinction bosses, they will not last, but for everything else, also apart from the Moda actually as well, they are the ideal because they deal bleed damage to bosses as they can grapple onto them and just tear them to absolute shreds. I find they are just so effective, so mobile, so useful. They also have the pack buff as well, like the Shadowbane, and yes, maybe it's only really as effective for one less boss than the Shadowman, so you'd be like, well, the Shadowman has to be better, but I find it is more effective for all those other bosses than the Shadowman, which is why I have to put it in at number 1. It is the king of boss fights for me. Yes, some people think differently. Some people like Aloes must be in the number 1 spot. Some people like Rexes must be in the number 1 spot. Some people would say Shadowman should be in the number 1 spot, or Gigas or Carodonttosaurus for the extinction boss fights and they're just their sheer power. But not the Shadowman, the Dionicus always deserves to be in the number 1 spot for me, and I'm pretty sure my opinion will never change unless like the Dionicus 2.0 comes out and it absolutely changes my perception of what the Dionicus is, and I'm like, well, this new creature is just miles and miles better. But I still have not found that. Ever since Valguera was released, I've been using these things for my boss fights and pretty much nothing else. End of. So thank you to my wonderful patrons Ekaterina Puchkova, Karina Thorne, Dominic Masijewski and Ethan Tapia, who have all supported me through Patreon or through YouTube memberships. If you want to join this list, then go join Patreon or YouTube members, but thanks to all of these guys.